I have great news. The president has left Walter Reed Medical Center and says he feels great. In fact, according to his tweet, he says he's feeling really good! Exclamation point. And that they have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge, and that he feels better than he did 20 years ago. So crisis averted, guys. So it sounds like POTUS is feeling great and not in any kind of significant danger health-wise.
I couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier that they roided him up, and then as soon as he went into his manic state, nobody was able to contain him, and he said, "I am getting on that helicopter and going back to the White House." I just want to know really well for him.
What drugs and knowledge could he possibly be referring to that they have developed under the fucking Trump administration? Like what is he talking about?
Don't
never anything.
Literally no clue.
It's all nonsense.
Have you guys seen these videos that have been all over Twitter of him today, like taking off his mask, getting ready to make a speech? And like, I mean, this part actually is kind of distressing, but he's clearly having difficulty like breathing. Like he's breathing with his mouth open and like in obvious respiratory distress. And he takes his mask off, by the way, to do this. And then I don't know. It's just this dude tweets out, "Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life." And is going to like drown in his lungs on TV. Like,
this is the direction it's going. This is a classic Greek tragedy. It's a man made it to the top and his hubris is going to be his downfall. What sucks to me is that there are 27 other people in his orbit who already fucking have COVID in a week.
Well, and then he's making these guys. I love it too that he's in the hospital and he's like, "All right, guys, I finally understand that COVID is a real danger. So I'm going to get in this fucking SUV with these other two guys, this like hermetically sealed SUV that can survive gas attacks, and have these guys drive me around the block so I can wave at the Proud Boys or whatever." Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I can't get enough of it. I love this timeline. This is fantastic. The only
thing that annoys me is people's being like, "Oh, he never had it in the first place." Like, do you really think he's that smart and like that capable of thinking ahead, that strategic? Not only that, he's a strongman candidate who could not even fathom how like damaging to that his strongman character being in ailment would be, right? That shit drives me nuts. My friend put it best when they said it's sort of like the Charlize Theron character, the Mr. F character in Arrested Development, where she has like Mr. the brain of a 7-year-old, but everyone thinks she's like really smart and dangerous.
Yeah, but that's exactly because she has a cool sounding accent. He has a really dumb sounding accent, so it doesn't translate quite as well.
So earlier today, I started reading a book that as the intro, or I'm listening to it on audiobook, and as the intro started playing, I was just like, yeah, I think I'm watching this play out in real life. And that book is Dying of Whiteness. It's Jonathan Metzel's book, which is basically about, how I think the subtitle is How the Politics of Racial Resentment is Killing America's Heartland. And I was just like, yeah, this guy is so committed to being strong, to COVID being a hoax, to not being sick, to not wearing a mask, that like he is doing everything against his own interests. And I was like, so this is the perfect book for me to start today. So
it's perfect.
We're just gonna dive right in.
He is going to be the reason that just like, I don't even know. I will say it so nobody else on this panel has to say it. I kind of hope he dies.
No, Dave, we're not doing that. Now, Dave, all of the libs just tuned off of the podcast. They don't want to hear anymore.
Let's just we'll just
all
record
good
over it. Like,
yeah, no,
all good.
he's an existential threat to humanity and our democracy, and he's absolutely going to ruin everything that we love, and he stands for everything that we hate. But we also hope that he stays healthy and lives for a really long time and enjoys his life.
That's great. Let me rewind my track, and I'm gonna be a John from Pod Save America.
It's all good, Dave. I
wish him a speedy recovery, and I can't wait to see him back at 700 Pennsylvania Avenue.
My favorite one is the libs who are like, he needs to recover so that we can vote him out and then he can go to prison. And I'm just like, oh man, 2021 is going to be a hard year for you, my friend.
Bottom line for me is that it's the ultimate gaslighting to ask people to make people feel bad for not having empathy with someone who is in power who has shown no empathy to them. Mm-hmm. That is just not cool. And I would, without being like, feeling like this is an extreme, I feel like the example would be like, were people who were enslaved supposed to feel bad when their masters got sick? Like, Are people who are being harmed by a system supposed to feel bad when somebody in that, like, it's an appeal for a recognition of their humanity that's not offered in reverse. And so people are allowed
it's an appeal to civility that isn't real. It doesn't exist.
Right. And so you can have whatever feelings morally or personally about what you are or are not willing to say. And I won't take that away from anybody. But it's the idea that people are being shamed into feeling bad about their honest reactions that I have a real problem with.
I welcome all of you on the day that final gurgle escapes his thin little lips and he says Rosebud to join me at a safe distance and with masks on in the streets to dance.
I believe that is when the rains will come and wipe the smoke away.
Yeah. Wow.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. That will be a beautiful day. On that day, we will dance. But for now, let's listen to a different song.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Flo, no Shannon.
No Shannon, but good news. She's feeling pretty good today.
She is feeling better. So Shannon, we love you. We miss you.
Yeah, and I think we can expect to see Shannon back hopefully in the next couple episodes. So that is a ray of light for everybody to look forward to.
Yes. Absolutely. But in the meantime, I think we've done really good at bringing in very impressive women running for office in interim episodes. And carrying along with that today, we have Mai Vang, who is...
Hi, y'all. What's up?
Not much.
Hi, everyone.
There you are. You're getting in the spirit of the show already. Jump in there.
I am. And I'm also really happy to be in the space with Skylar, Dave, and Flo. I've been listening to Voices of the River City, and I have to say, like, y'all are the platform and the voice for like progressive folks in the city of Sacramento. And so I just want to say thank you because it's important to have a platform like this. So thank you. Shout out to y'all because this in itself is advocacy and activism. So just, and it takes time to like cut and do all this and plan all this stuff. So I just want to give a shout out for you for creating and holding space for that type of voice. So
oh,
love it.
Wow.
Cheers.
Thank you very much. Yes, cheers to that.
Cheers.
No, it means a lot. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to bring people on who are speaking truth to power and making each day a little harder for the people who are in power, who are working their hardest to just hold on to their power. So it means a lot to hear someone say that. We're not here to talk about us today, although I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Not this episode,
okay.
though, I don't think. Maybe next one.
Maybe we focus back to Mai. you are running for Sacramento City Council in District 8, correct?
I am. I'm running for Sacramento City Council District 8, South Sac, Meadowview, Detroit, Hampton Station, Parkway, North Laguna, Valley High area, South Sacramento, where I grew up, born and raised. So love this community deeply. And if I'm honored enough to be selected by the voters, hopefully they'll put me in that seat so that I could take all of y'all to City Hall with me. So yeah.
So it sounds like
Hell yeah.
you know this district well. Like you grew up here in the Meadowview area, right?
Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Meadowview area and also the Oak Park area. So my mom and dad came here as refugees. Mom's family settled in Meadowview and dad's family settled in Oak Park. So I actually grew up in Oak Park and Meadowview.
Okay. Oh man. Well, why don't we just like dive into your, just like real quick, maybe just tell us your story and kind of, you know, the parts of your story that maybe are the most formative to you. You've been profiled a couple times in different outlets in the region. Your family is survivors from the secret war, which was in Laos, sort of a proxy war of Vietnam, which also, I guess, is a proxy war of its own. But a lot of Hmong folks had to come over here because their lives were in danger once that war ended. I guess maybe we just start with that and then just say, you know, your story, who you are and where we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also share, even though it is my story, I feel like it has a lot of commonality. I think my story is stories that I think folks also find very common in their own lived struggle. So, you know, I was born and raised daughter of refugee immigrants, grew up in South Sacramento. I am the oldest of 16 children. That's right, 16. I got 6 sisters. I know. I tell
so
folks,
many kids.
I just tell folks I didn't do anything. I was just born first. You know, I was just born first. I got 6 sisters and 9 brothers. And, you know, when I close my eyes and I think of my earliest childhood memories, it's 2. One is dancing in the sunlight in a small low income housing apartment, right? Dancing in the living room. And the other one is walking to the refrigerator to grab milk for my mom to feed my little siblings. Those are the 2 earliest memory I can remember. So as soon as I could walk, I've been helping to raise my little brothers and sisters. So that was my childhood growing up.
16.
But I would say
that's a full soccer team with subs.
I mean,
that's incredible. What's the age disparity? Like what's like the youngest versus you, the oldest?
Absolutely. I'm 35 and the youngest is 8. So I got a sibling in like every single grade. So I'm always like, so I know when I got to get on TikTok, I know like what is the hottest like music, BTS or whatever. I know when like things like I check in on them because I got one in middle school, elementary, high school, college, working out of the house, right? And so we have the spectrum of lived experiences. So it's pretty awesome. But I would say, you know, I think like my story is, you know, not that different. I mean, I grew up in poverty, but I will say as a young person, my mom and dad did the best they could to put food on the table. So I didn't really recognize that I was poor until the 3rd grade. And so I kind of want to share the story because in the 3rd grade, back in the days when you could bring junk food and you can, you know, bring junk food to school, whatnot, or now if you want to hide it, you probably still can. But like I was on the playground in the 3rd grade and I had a classmate that was like, got everybody huddled on the playground and was like, hey, you know, tomorrow is like movie day. And so if y'all give me money, Friday is movie day. And if you give me money tomorrow, I can go to the grocery store with my mom to pick up some chips and hot Cheetos, right? So, and hot Cheetos like my favorite snack back in the day when I was in 3rd grade. And so that night I went home and lesson learned, don't ever steal from your parents. I went into my mom's purse.
Okay,
and
let's not go that far.
Yeah. Yeah. But
is the hot take always steal from your parents? Because I'm just a little confused.
My dad taught me in all things moderation. So steal moderately from your parents.
Yeah.
Steal from your parents sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally. So I went home that night, took $1 out of my mom's purse, and then the next day during recess, I was on the playground. Everyone huddled, and I pulled out my $1. And everybody pulled out their $1, and then all of a sudden, the girl said to me, "That's food stamp. Oh, you're hella poor, Mai." And all the kids started laughing because as a young kid, I didn't know the difference between like a food stamp or like $1. I just saw it as a transaction, like money, right? And so all the kids started laughing, and I like just started crying. And in that moment, I knew I was different, right? Because everyone had their dollar bill looked very different from mine. And I remember sitting in the playground and just crying. And so at a young age, I really internalized poverty, right? So I didn't know about my own history. I didn't know that my parents were involved in the Vietnam War. So growing up, I was that obedient, good Hmong daughter, but I really internalized, I think, like wanting to be white, wanting to have a better income, right? But I kept that all inside and I internalized it. And I actually went to college, one, because I wanted to leave Sacramento. I wanted to escape all of it because I grew up in a house full of cockroaches, real talk. I remember walking my siblings to school back in the days when they had buses and seeing condoms and needles on the street. And this is the neighborhood like I grew up in, right? And I just told myself, I want to leave Sacramento. I don't want to come back. And so my teacher, Ms. Jean Crowder, she worked with me every Tuesday and Thursday night, helped me like until 11 o'clock at night, driving me home, making sure I got my scholarship done, my essay done. And I got a full ride, to college. And I went to college. I was like, deuces, bye, Sacramento. But then when I went to college, that was when my transformation happened, because I took the class in sociology and read one line about the Hmong people and how we were involved in the secret war in Laos. The CIA recruited the Hmong folks to fight in the Vietnam War, right? But then, as you know, history, fall of Saigon happened, the US withdrew their troops, and there was a complete genocide of our people. So my family had to flee, right, Laos, cross the Mekong River and get to Thailand to seek refuge, and then come here, right? And then, they were placed in these neighborhoods, right? Like all of it is a sociological imagination, right? As a young kid, I didn't know any of this stuff until I read it in the books in higher education, right? And I became so angry because I called my dad up because I had to write a paper in college. And I asked my dad, and I'm translating this from Hmong to English. It's like, how come you never told me about my history? My dad said to me, well, because you never asked. But I think it was a way for my mom and dad not to talk about the trauma in the war. And they just wanted me to go to school, get that good job, and all of that. But then I was so angry. That's when my activism really started. So I started fighting for like Asian American studies and ethnic studies at the University of San Francisco, did like hunger strike, fighting with students. And that's really what sparked. That's the reason why I also believe in ethnic studies and making sure that young people understand our own lived history. Because I think as a young person, if I had learned that through my K-12 education, if I knew my people's history, I don't think I would have internalized poverty the way I did. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the reason why I really think it's important for, curriculum to reflect our young people. And so fast forward, like I went to USF, UCLA, and then I got my master's in public health and Asian American studies. Came back to Sacramento.
Shout out to public health.
Also, did I just hear a double master's in there?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. So I majored in Asian American studies and public health, came back to Sacramento, worked for a nonprofit. But then started looking around the neighborhood and was just like, damn, you can have a college degree, you can go get educated, but if your family's still struggling, if your community's still struggling, what good is that college degree, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I was working at California Forward, a few colleagues and I, back in our early 20s, got together and was like, let's register folks to vote. Let's, inform them about different proposition and ballot measure and candidates, right? So we started HIP, Hmong Innovating Politics. So as a young organizer, we started with money in a shoebox underneath someone's bed. Straight up, that is how we fundraise, money in a shoebox underneath someone's bed.
How old were you at the time?
I was like 23, 22, 23, or 20, okay. 23.
So you're in kind of let's tear shit up mode, politically. Yeah.
And so we did all of that organizing, held forums for our elders, get them engaged in the political process. And I remember an elder sharing with me, I don't think I'm going to vote. And I'm translating this from English, from Hmong to English. Is, she literally said, I'm dumb and I don't understand how American politics work. And I looked at her and I said, we can learn together. Right? But they were so hungry to engage in the political process. They just needed someone to help translate, help them walk through the process, right? And so that's how HIP started. But I think how we actually made it to the political scene was when there was massive school closures in South Sacramento, right? And we had hella parents calling us. They just knew that we were a young group that was organizing folks to register to vote and said, hey, our schools are being closed. We just got a notification. We don't know what to do, where to go. No one told us about it. And so that is when HIP actually organized parents, about 300 parents around the school closures back in 2012 and 2013. But school closures impact low-income communities, that they're not just Hmong families. They're Black, Latino, low-income whites, right? And so it was like a multi-ethnic coalition trying to stop school closures. And at that time, you know, I would say even current board members who are sitting on the board now that I now serve with, you know, looked at us as if we were just some young reactive activists, like they're just going to protest and they're going to be gone. But no, because after, you know, after they made the decision to close some of the school, we were able to save 3 or 4 of the schools. We were still proactive, right? We wanted to know, how are you going to repurpose this school site like Maple and Fruit Ridge, which is now community center, right? We were engaged in that political process. That's when I ran for school board, not thinking I was going to run for school board, but
I didn't even get to introduce like your current role. You just dove right into your.
This is incredible.
I've never had a more assertive guest in my life.
Mai knows how to do this. We're kind of just here to be able to like
have to do
move it along every now and again.
Yeah, so y'all can ask questions. So like, yeah, so like I was like, you know, parents were like, Ma, you should think about running for office. I was like, no, because I don't got any kids in the school district, right? I do have 32 nieces and nephews in the school district, but I'm not a mom and dad.
Mai,
I know.
The hell, like
just 32.
You have more relatives in the school district than most people ever will, like in their lifetime.
Yeah, I think you're pretty well connected.
Yeah.
So I was like, actually, because we were actually recruiting parents to run for school board.
Mm-hmm.
And then when parents asked me to run, I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to do it. And then when they kept asking me,
how old were you at the time?
Like, I want to say 27, 28.
Okay.
Maybe 28. Yeah.
So how many, was this like 6 years ago?
20. Yeah, no.
This was when her youngest sibling was born.
Yeah. No, I was 28, 29.
Okay.
I was just turning 29.
Right.
Yeah.
So her youngest sibling was 2. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I said, you know, I don't know. Let me think about it. And so actually I sat down with Council Member Carr, because at this time when I left California Forward to run HIP, you know, I didn't have a job. And then when Carr got elected in 2016, you know, he was looking for someone to work in the office, because he was like, you know, we have a large Southeast Asian community. I would love you to work for me. And so, you know, when I thought about running for office, I actually asked him that, hey, council member, I'm thinking about running for a school board. Would you endorse me? And he said to me, well, Mai, let me ask you a question. I think this is like the best advice he ever gave me, because I've known him since I was 16, because he was a teacher at Sac High. And I said, I'm thinking about running for office. I would love your endorsement. He asked me one question. He was like, why are you running? And I said, well, because the community is asking me to run. And he looked at me and he was like, you know, out of all my years in office, like, first he was like, that's a really nice answer, Mai. That's a very humbling answer, but it's not the answer I was looking for. And he was like, throughout my years of running for office, like, there are going to be times when you're going to have to make tough decisions, and you can't just be the one. It just can't be community asking you to run. You got to want this seat just as bad as the community. And because you're the one making the vote that night, and you're the one that's going to have to make those tough decisions. So it can't just be folks wanting you to run because you can get pulled in a million directions. You got to be hella grounded.
Of pressure that,
Yeah. So he said, let me ask you again. Why are you running? I know.
I wasn't going to say anything, Flo. I wasn't even going to say anything.
Listen, I'm just here to pass the collection plate and make sure that Mai has an amen chorus when she needs it, and play the tambourine.
Yeah, nothing to do with you.
That's hella funny. Yeah, so then he asked me again, and I said, well, I'm running because the community wants me to run. And he was like, nah, then I'm not going to endorse you. I'm not going to endorse you. You come back and you tell me later when you want this seat. So I was like, okay, I guess I don't want the seat. So I just said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then as an organizer, we had a principal.
So I want to pause real quick.
Yeah.
Just so people, listeners know who and what we're talking about. We're talking about Sac City Unified School District. This is one of perhaps the major central city school district. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
And actually, it's like, I would say it's probably one of the toughest boards to serve on in the region. We're also talking about Council Member Larry Carr, who is the council member of District 8.
Yeah, currently the council member of District 8.
And that is the district of basically all the neighborhoods that Mai very efficiently listed off at the beginning of this episode. And so like these are the people, the players, this is kind of what's going on. And this is, so you're considering running for this office. I just wanted to pause and give people all the background on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so like when I think that was a really good advice that he gave me. So I just said, no, I'm not going to do this. But then when I was organizing as a HIP organizer, I had to fill out like 31 uniform complaint procedures because we had Hmong parents who, didn't like the principal. And she was making comments about like, why are, students learning Hmong when they should be learning English? And so I was sitting here like in a room with like 30 Hmong parents transcribing and doing these uniform complaint procedure. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I love being an organizer, but if I was a school board member, I would approach this situation so differently. So I was like, you know what? I may not know all the answer, but I'm gonna run for office. I'm gonna throw my hat in and I'm gonna do this. It's all heart and hustle, and I'm gonna serve this community because I'm already doing the work. And so I threw my hat in, and then I've been on the school board for 4 years, and my term will end this November. So we'll see what happens. And it's been an incredible, amazing 4 years, really challenged 4 years as well. And I know we're going to go into it. I think there's still a lot of work ahead. But let me just share this. One reason why I'm also running for city council is the same reason why I ran for school board, to make sure that we bring resources back to our families and our neighborhood schools, straight up, especially during COVID now. Like, our governments can't work in silo. We got to make sure that, we're working in partnership to bring resources back to our families and our neighborhoods, especially during COVID. So, yeah.
I mean, one thing I think everyone on this show probably likes about you immediately is that you come from this sort of staunch activist background, and the grassroots organizing can't be, I mean, people can try and claim it, but like, unless you do it, like I don't think that, right? Can you talk a little bit about, I believe if you were to get this office, if you were to be elected into District 8, you would be the first ever Hmong woman on city council. Is that correct?
That is correct. I would be the first Asian
woman. So can I ask what that means? Like, you speak so passionately about where you're from, and these folks in your community who obviously do not feel represented and are afraid to even kind of come out there and assert that they should be represented. What does that mean with a Mai Vang in office?
Yeah, I would say I think there is importance in representation. I think it's really powerful to see folks that look like you. And I think, for the Hmong community, they're hungry to see someone that looks like them. But I will also say, I think I will be unapologetic about being Hmong and being Asian, an Asian American woman. But look, I'm running actually to make sure that there's a voice for everyone in the district. And that means if I'm fighting for Black lives, and the API community or a segment of the API community is uncomfortable with that, I am going to be unapologetic about that, right? And so, I am going to be the first Asian woman, but I am running for city council to make sure that we uplift every single voice, and especially those that have been left behind. And I would actually say they all have voice, but ain't nobody listening to them. That's what it is, And so, yeah, representation is a huge difference, because I will share this as well, that as a school board member, sometimes I don't even have to mention about our Hmong students, and staff is already thinking, oh, I wonder what board member Vang's going to think about this, right? Like, it changes the psyche of staff, of the community, of folks, right? When you have that, just like, right? And it does something to the community, right? But that in itself is the first step, but you also got to make sure that you put people there that aligns in your value, that will fight for like equity. Like, that's just equally as important as having representation, because you can have someone there that is API, but if they're not fighting for our immigrant or refugee and our Black and Indigenous community, then what's the point of also being there? So for me, like, it's got to be intersectional, like that representation. It has to be bigger than just being an Asian American woman and a Hmong woman, even though I will own it, and I think it is a milestone in itself. And so, yeah, I mean, it's crazy that we've never had an Asian American, an API woman on the city council before. And Sacramento is incredibly diverse, right? It's a large API population as well. So, yeah.
You mentioned, and I just really want to ask this question, and then Flo and Skylar, go at it. But You mentioned, speaking up and going to bat for the Black and Brown communities in your district. And it reminded me of this sort of episode that arose in Sacramento media a couple years back. This kind of manufactured Black Asian conflict narrative, right? Where businesses and robberies, were happening around the area, and it was somewhat fueled by the media. Maybe somebody else could describe this storyline better. I mean, obviously, Mai, you were a part of the Unity Circle that sort of helped make sure that this narrative did not spiral off in the wrong direction. So can you kind of set the scene and then let people know what the Unity Circle was all about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a few years ago, I think there were API, Asian grocery owners, and also, fear from the Asian community that, they were being targeted and literally, and they said by Black folks, right, by African American community. And I think that also caused a narrative of criminalizing Black folks, right? And I think that was that was like the turning point of HIP, and figuring out like, how do we actually control this narrative? Because this is like a false narrative that is actually hurting all sides, all of our community, right? And when you think about crime that happens in the neighborhood, you have to think about what are the conditions that create these type of tension, right? And oftentimes it comes down to poverty. It comes down to lack of resources, right? And so our energy should be spent on investment and talking about, that we need, more safe neighborhoods, right? Safe neighborhoods meaning more resources, more support for our small minority business owners, and more support for our young people, right? And so I think for me, like, that was a really challenging moment for HIP and for young millennials API to figure out, like, how are we going to have those courageous conversations with folks in our community to talk about, what we're going to own the fact that these incidents happen, but how do we also make sure that when we talk about protection and safety, that we don't also criminalize the Black community while we're doing that? Because actually what we're doing is we're falling white into white supremacy, and this is how it works, right? Dividing communities. And so Unity Circle was really, I worked with Barry Akias as well, to hold these conversation about, when we talk about communities, what is the root causes of this tension? It's really poverty, right? Lack of resources, and that if we spent our energy on that, like, we can do so much good for the community, for the small business owners and the community at large, right?
Yeah. I want to be fair too to your opponent. I think Pastor Les was a part of this dialogue as well, right?
Yeah, there were several people. We had several people from HIP, various folks from the Black community. I think Pastor Les absolutely was part of that too.
Yeah. And
it was really important. Yeah. So yeah. And even now, right, like with COVID and the uprising, with the murder of George Floyd, the officer who stood by was Hmong, right? Tu Tao. Yeah. And after that incident happened, we held a webinar with, advocates across the U.S., Hmong women advocates, to talk about Black Lives Matter and anti-Blackness in the Hmong community, right? Your proximity to whiteness, And I remember about 22,000 folks logged in. And that is when you start seeing all the trolls, all the like patriarchy, all the toxic masculinity, hating on Hmong women, death threats, calling us monkey lovers. Like it was like the gamut. It ran everything, right? And and holding firm to that and talking about that, and that in itself, like these comments is like it was evidence like of just how much work we need to do in our own community, right? Like I could be out there protesting, which I've participated in protests, but that true work and that transformation happens inside your family, talking to your uncles, because we know anti-Blackness exists in our own communities. And so when I talk to APIs and Hmong folks, like, well, how do you be part of that movement? That means we got to check ourselves in ways that, like, how have I, as Mai Vang, as an elected official, even as a community advocate, how have I been complicit in upholding system that has been harmful, right? I'm always super critical of that, right? And I think all of us, because they're like, I'm not immune to being, racist, and I've been conditioned, right? And so I always got to check myself, the things I say, the policy I pass, be reflective, listen to those on the ground who's my eyes and ears, right? I try to take all of that in to make sure that I'm making the best decision, because the worst thing you can do as an elected official or as a leader is to pass something a policy that, you know, you're creating the same kind of systems and structures that you're trying to fight against, right? That is like one of my biggest fear, you know. I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to create the kind of systems that I'm already trying to fight against. Then what good is my job in terms of serving this community, right? And that's why like the people's budget matters, right? That's why like working with grassroots organization is so important, who understand the lived struggles on the ground of people. And because I feel like when you're informed in that way and you're making impact on folks on the ground, that's when like real change can happen. So
yeah. So it sounds like you're a proponent of the Sacramento People's Budget.
Absolutely, yeah, because Katie and I was talking about like, you know, when
Katie Valenzuela for listeners, council member elect for District 4.
Also other member of the X Squad.
The squad, yes.
Yeah, because I think folks always say to Katie and I, like, can you count your votes? You know, they always say that to Katie and I all the time. And yes, we can count our votes. So we know that we're only 2 votes. Yeah, I can count to 5, right. Yeah. But the thing is, like, I think having Katie and I on there, or even if it's Pastor Les, you know, like, if you're counting your votes, you also need political pressure on the outside. You need community to put pressure on our colleagues on the dais, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the reason why organization and like, you know, the people's budget makes a huge difference, because it's like the people's voice, right? Putting pressure on elected officials that this is what, like, you're supposed to represent us, right? And this is what the people want, and we need to respond to that. So
can I ask you then what your response to, you know, when Mayor Steinberg and others on city council refer to the people who are adamant about this stuff, who do show up and give public comment, who do put the time in on the people's budget, they refer to them as a vocal, angry minority. Do you agree with that?
No. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because here's the other thing. I think, you know, I've been having conversation with young folks and also older folks who I would say have voted for those who are in current position, is that, like, you know, I'm not going to say names, but folks are really out of touch with voters and community on the ground, straight up.
I'll say names.
You know, yeah. So,
like adversarial even.
You know, like if you look at, you know, the voting patterns in our community in Sacramento, we're actually way more progressive than we think we are. You know what I mean? And there is a shift. Like there's like a snowball
I love
effect.
Hearing that.
Yeah, we are in this place right now where, like, right, and that's why, like, you see like amazing folks like Dr. Flo, right? Like folks pushing, like we are in this cups right now. Like I feel like, which way are we gonna go? You know, and we have that momentum right now, right? And we gotta hold on to it. We gotta hustle. We gotta organize our people to push to get folks elected in office who's gonna do real change for our. We are at that moment right now, and we can't lose sight of that, right? But I do feel like some electeds are definitely out of touch with voters and just community groups on the ground.
I wanted to ask you, like your race is interesting and notable in that I think that I think that both of the candidates, both you and Pastor Les, are fairly highly thought of by the community, respectively. And I know that that's kind of, I assume that that's kind of how both of you guys are, where it's like, well, I'll be happy if the other one wins. And you said earlier, I'll work to do whatever I can to help out. Which is cool. I think that's like the best case scenario for one of these elections to be in. That said, like Pastor Les does have a lot of support in his community, and for a pretty good reason. And a lot of people really like him. Like what, and obviously I'm not asking you to like trash him or like slander him, but like what's the elevator pitch that you would give to people who like Pastor Les about why they should vote for you over him?
Yeah, I tell folks that I am the only candidate that has that governance experience, the organized experience, and the policy experience to hit the ground day one, right? And I know that, like, I did work in Councilmember Carr's office, right? And so that could seem good or bad if you don't like Carr or not. But I'm also a very independent thinker, that there have been moments where I have worked for him and have said, Councilmember Carr, I'm going to organize against you on this. I want you to know. Right. And so
I want to hear an example about this, because I read about this in a Marcos column, and I was like, when did Mai do this? And Carr was just like, yeah, okay. Like, how did this go down?
Yeah, so usually, if I'm in the office when I work for him, I also advise him like on ways that he should vote, right? And sometimes he's very independent. He'll vote his own way, even if I give him some recommendation, right? But for the urban ag ordinance in particular, he was against it because how he saw it was that he didn't want like these pop-up tents popping in our neighborhoods, and he felt like it wouldn't be good if folks were selling their food, But I told him, businesses are happening now inside people's homes. Right, like that is happening now. We live in a food desert. If people can grow their own food and they can sell it, this is a win-win for the community. And so I told him to vote yes, and he told me he wasn't going to vote yes. So I said, I have family members, community members that loves this idea of being able to grow food and be able to sell it. I'm organizing Hmong farmers to come and speak on behalf of this ordinance. And I just want you to know, I know you're my boss, but I want to just be, very transparent with you that I'm doing that. Right. So I was out there, I was out there with the protesters, not on work time. I waited until, obviously after 5 o'clock, legally. But yeah, but just to let him know, he's like, okay, we'll just agree to disagree. Right. It's like things like that.
That's really cool on his part. Also very, I mean, maybe the word audacious has a negative connotation. It's just like, it's very brave on your part to be like, nah, I'm going to represent my community.
Yeah. So, and I would say also, I would say, because, Skylar, you asked about what the difference is. So like, I would say policy, governance, organizing, but I will also say follow the money and follow some of our different alliances of who's supporting who, right? Like I would say, I don't have the support of Chamber or the realtors, right? And there's a reason why, because I'm for rent control, right? And so I also think like, I will say I am I'm a progressive candidate. And I'll just leave it at that. I think Pastor Les is incredibly, he's progressive as well, but I think you should follow the money and follow the alignment on that.
Yeah.
So.
And listeners, we actually have spreadsheets of both contributions from both folks in the race. So we will have that available for listeners very soon.
Yeah. And, and I think both Pastor and I decide we're not taking police union money, right?
Hell yeah.
Katie, me, Katie, Tamika, and also Zima did a pledge urging elected officials and candidates not to do it. And Pastor Les Simmons signed it on too, right? Amazing. But I will say when I started that, oh my gosh, I got endorsement rescinded. I got phone calls from folks, asking me why am I doing this and that it's anti-union to not take police money. I mean, it ran the gamut, right?
It is not anti-union,
not anti-union at all
to not take police money.
Yeah.
Honestly, that
entire union.
If I start getting those calls, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm doing the right thing here. Yeah. Like, that's how I know that I'm fucking rocking the right boats.
Yeah. Oh, this union that protects people when they extrajudiciously kill someone. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna say he did take money from, like, Pastor Les did sign the pledge. He also did take money from Jim Cooper, who is an elected official who is also a longtime cop who has been fighting against police reform tooth and nail at the state level. And, as you said, I think by proxy that's kind of a damning thing to consider when you're considering this race.
Yeah. But I just want to say on record, I have tremendous respect for Pastor Les Simmons. He's done incredible work in the community.
Also
I always
same.
did that
Yeah.
by myself. Yeah, but I would just say, follow the different, endorsement and alliances, and then, you can make a judgment based on that. But back to the police pledge, like it's crazy because like when folks call me anti-union, I was like, oh my gosh, we had to put out a follow-up statement to reaffirm folks that we weren't anti-labor, right? And it's so crazy because I have and always will be for collective bargaining and working people. But like when we think about the labor movement, it isn't one-dimensional or one sectional interest, right? Like the labor movement has always been, right, centered on the struggles of workers, right?
Yes.
Right. And their responsibility is to take on the fight to address social and racial inequities, right? So a union isn't just about its membership, but about all working people, especially those most vulnerable and left behind, And so like we had to also do a follow-up statement to let folks know that no, we are absolutely not anti-union. So
right. I mean, cop unions get away with that all the they get away with like awful shit by being like, oh, we're a union, we're working class or whatever. When it's like much, if you look at how it operates, it's much closer to like a fucking crime syndicate than it is like a workers union, right?
100%. Also, I think we need to bring kind of what Mai was saying a little bit further. You were talking about like you're very pro worker, you're very pro helping those who don't have much, right? Comforting the afflicted. And what police unions, and I'll bring it up even to the prison guard unions too, what they are the coercive arm of capital, of government, of
Correct.
the powerful.
Correct.
So what they're doing is the opposite of what labor was created to do. Labor was created to strengthen the worker and the lower classes. And what they are doing is, you know, basically continuing the pressure of the higher classes on the working class.
Yeah.
They're not unions in the traditional sense, and they shouldn't be regarded as that. And I think one of the things, and you know, Dave, you bring this up a lot, is that when we start talking about, you know, unions and what they mean, one of the things that we shouldn't be defending unions that harm the members of other unions. So, you know, and that are often, you know, fighting against the rights of the people. And so, you know, the history of policing, which we've kind of gotten into on this podcast in previous episodes, is also the history of union busting, right? So it's a really complicated story of where the police are going to fall on things. And I think in particular, if you're protecting the interest of the state, that doesn't always put you in the moral high ground. And that doesn't always put you, especially given the history of this particular state, you know, and I mean state, not California, but I mean the state of our union. Like it often puts you in a situation where you don't have the moral authority, and where the lens of history looks back on you really unfavorably. I mean, police were the ones out there, you know, sticking fire hoses on protesters in the 60s. They were the ones who were turning the other cheek or actively engaging in lynching. They were the ones, you know, who were enforcing, you know, immoral standards. So when you think about law enforcement, you know, the role is to enforce the laws that we have. And that certainly, you know, in some ways is their duty, but at the same time, it also doesn't necessarily give them the moral upper hand or the historical upper hand. And so I think it's really important that we call that out, that they are playing a unique role. And that role right now is to defend fascism, right? And so we can't certainly sit down and pretend that that's the same as the people trying to provide us healthcare during a pandemic, for example.
Right. Just because something is legal does not make it morally correct. Like, in that there's a million examples to back that statement up.
I will never derive my morality from what is legal, ever. Because there are absolutely things that were totally legal that are immoral, and absolutely things that were totally illegal that I think are absolutely moral. And so I will not use that as the line that I draw in terms of whether or not something is or is not allowable, especially because it changes. 4 years ago, it was illegal to use marijuana in the state of California, and now that's totally legal. Like, and you know, example I love to use is that there was a time where it was illegal to teach me to read and totally legal to own me. And I just don't, I will never derive my morality from a system where that was at one time ever okay.
Right. And just like, so while we're on this topic, I would like to state that for like people who are like, well, cops just have a job to do and they're doing it and they don't make the rules or whatever, that is called the Nuremberg defense. And that's what Nazis used to like try and shed the responsibility of the horror of their actions under the guise of we were just obeying orders and doing what we were told. So I guess I'm trying to say that's pretty fucking weak sauce.
This is what happens when you mention cops on our
show. This is a touchy topic for us.
I see that. We can transition. We can definitely transition. I'm gonna take a sip. Cheers.
Flo, I don't think you've asked a question yet.
I have not.
I don't think I've heard from you until this last rant.
I just have to say, I have so much mad love and respect for Flo and I'm going to say this and put on record, is that like I am ready to walk for her, to phone bank for her when she announced her candidacy for mayor. I just have to say, like, I feel like Sacramento.
Favorite
like,
guest so far. Easy. Mai is the best guest.
I am just going to say it on record, okay? That I said it here, that I want to walk for her. I'm going to phone bank for her. I will sit in your kitchen cabinet for strategy on how to win that seat, because we need someone like her who is bold and courageous. And it's folks like her who don't want the seat that is the perfect candidate to represent the people of Sacramento.
Another really smart person came on the show and said that. But I don't remember who it was.
Who was it who said that?
It was me.
I hate everyone.
You know, and you're a sister in public health. I mean, like everything. When we think about creating a better Sacramento, like I just think like who would be an amazing candidate? I'm just like, Dr. Flo, we gotta put enough pressure on her. We've just gotta organize and do it. And then she's like, I got no choice. I'm gonna do this, you know?
It doesn't sound like you internalized Larry
but
Carr's
you know
advice
what?
to you at all.
Right.
It's a process, right? Like it's also a process. It's also a process because Flo, I'll be real with you. You are already doing the work as a mayor. Like the work that you're doing right now, like getting information and, you know, serving as chair of Measure U. I mean, you're doing the work already. That's the thing. I just have to say it, right? And so why not? Why not? You know,
I hate how much Dave and Skylar are enjoying this. I really like, of all the things I didn't want to give them today is an enjoyable night.
Yeah.
As
imagine. I mean, we can
Flo's
dream it, right? Like just imagine. I mean, I just think about a Sacramento, like imagine like what that would look like. That would be so powerful, you know, and just for our community and the voters in the city, like I'm like, that is like a new day, you know? And so, you know, we're waiting, Dr. Flo, we are waiting, but we will work on your timeline. We will work on your timeline. And just know you have an amazing group of army ready to stand by you. So.
As Flo's self-directed or self-appointed comms director, I will forward this message to her husband.
Oh, that's right. Because it's not just you running; he's running too, right? It's gonna be the whole family running. But Asher, I'm sure he's gonna be all down for it. I can't speak for him, but I'm like, he supports you. If you're in it, he's in it to win it. So.
I'm claiming
he will support whatever I decide I want to do, which is So he will say no on my behalf, and unless I say yes. So it's not useful to work the Tareen angle because he will not budge. Like he is good and stubborn like that.
No, that was me just like making it so you didn't have to answer anything.
I'm claiming the book rights on this. I've already started writing.
Gosh.
The Reluctant Mayor, the story of Dr. Flo-Jean Kofer. Nobody gets to steal that, by the way. That's trademarked.
You said it, Skylar. You said it. It's here. It's here first. Yeah. And so
I'm Not Mayor by Dr. Flo.
I'm not. I can write that book now. I'm not the mayor.
Counterpoint. Well, guys, speaking of like having a ton of time to write books about fantastic topics like the Reluctant Mayor of Sacramento, which I'm also going to write a children's version of that, I think, because I think that title works both ways. Can
it be like green eggs and ham? Or like I will not do it here or there. I will not do it anyway.
That's so funny.
Yes, it can, in fact. I actually, though, am in a position where I have time to write biographies of my friends because I have, well, I think I've found all the takes. I've spent basically since COVID, I've turned my time into an operation in which I mine perfect takes from Twitter and Facebook and whatnot. But I've done my job too well. And at this point, I have consumed all of the perfect takes. So like I'm kind of left, like what I'm left with now, it's like, imagine, if you will, a bag of potato chips. Now, I've eaten all the nice, big, crunchy ones, the ones that kind of take you a couple of bites to get down. And now I've worked my way through the kind of medium-sized ones that are like one bite, but still a satisfying crunch. Now there are just little odds and ends and dust waiting for me at the bottom of my bag of chips, and I fear that my quest for perfect takes has come to an end. It's causing me some distress, I won't lie. And I don't know, does anybody have any news that might cheer me up about other perfect takes that are available so I can toss aside this empty bag and tear open a nice, crisp, fresh one?
Mm-hmm.
I love this so much.
I guess I'll take this one.
Yeah.
First of all, Skylar, sorry to hear you're not working right now.
Don't mention
You
it.
know, it is what it is. You know, things are happening.
Work.
Work, right? Working harder, hardly working. That's what they always say. So Mondays, am I right? I totally lost track of my. I got no seg this time. All right, so I've got a place that's just basically a party bowl of perfect takes. It's as deep as your arm will get. It's elbow deep in perfectly round, salted, perfect takes that you can dip in your, favorite salsa or whatever it is you dip.
I like the sound of this. I like where this is going.
This place is called, this tub of perfect takes is called voicesrivercity.com. And we've been around since like 2017, I believe, doing news and arts coverage, truth to power essays. We actually just ran one, an essay by Elliot Stevenson, who is part of the SAC Tenants Union, huge tenants rights advocate.
Former guest. He's been on the show. Yeah.
Basically outlining all of the lies that the very rich real estate industry is putting out there in their fight against Measure C. Folks, vote yes on C.
Yes.
On C.
For fuck's sake, please vote yes on Measure C. It's
yes on C.
And
no on A.
No on A.
And no on A. No on A. Strong mayor.
And yes on B, because we need.
And yes on B, because hey, we need time to
like
get
the
that
census
stuff in
got
order.
delayed, so like let's just get our redistricting.
Yeah, let's just get that stuff in order.
No controversy there. Don't vote no on B. It's weird, right? Don't make it weird.
Yeah.
Don't make it weird. Okay, that's all we ask.
I don't know. We'll see.
Itching to make it weird. Itching to make it weird.
The Joker. The only person who's no on B is Joker.
Right. See what
but yeah, Elliot's piece is beautiful, and it actually we published it before Gil Duran at the B wrote the dumb editorial against Measure C, but it basically shows all of the lies that Gil wrote in that piece as well. So I'm proud to have had Elliot come to us and to have that published.
It's good though, honestly, Gil Duran is doing a service because his takes are so whack that it provides this contrast for perfect takes that just makes them look even like good takes wouldn't be good takes if we didn't have Gil's takes to compare them to, right?
Yeah, he runs his editorial board based on effectively retribution, capital, and butthurtedness, I believe. Yeah. So, Gil, thank you for that. Anyway, read Gil, or not Gil. Well, actually, read Gil's piece. It's kind of funny. Read Elliot's piece at Voices River City for all of the debunking of Gil's bullshit. In any event, more recently, we're also doing the SAC Follows the Money project. We've got Where the Money's Coming From on A, on C. We're gonna have Your Race with Pastor Les. I think we got a couple other things too. I think we have the district, who is that, 2 race? 2. Alan and I forget who's challenging him. Yes.
Sean.
And so we're gonna have that up in the next couple days. And we all now are getting our ballots in the mail. They were mailed out Monday of this week. So Monday being the 5th of October. So get ready for those, folks. And as you're thinking about how to vote and where to vote, Flo, could you discuss a little bit that great project that you do every election cycle?
Yes, certainly, David Kempa. I certainly can. So starting in 2014, the Sacramento Sister Circle has produced a voter guide for every single election, where we go down the things that are on the Sacramento ballot and some of the surrounding areas. And so that voter guide is available at sacramentosistercircle.com/vote. This year, we, and for the last, I think it's like 6 election cycles, or maybe it's 4. We partnered with Black Women Organized for Political Action. And so BWOPA does endorsements. And so you will notice in the guide, not only do BWOPA members contribute to the writing of the guide, I think this year we had a total of 17 people helping to write the guide. So shout out to the whole crew. Wow. But also the BWOPA crew, when endorsements are developed, then those are listed in the guide. So the Sister Circle does not provide endorsements. Everything is just recommendations, and we just quick little mention, Mai Vang was endorsed by BWOPA. Mai Vang is a BWOPA endorsed candidate. That is correct. But we do consider this to be for informational purposes. And the way that I like to describe it is a real talk. It will include some AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English. It's so fun to read.
It is pretty fun to read.
Snarky. It is honest. It is irreverent. It is everything you ever wanted out of a voter guide, but didn't know you. Even when you disagree, you're like, okay, that's kind of fun. We try to give all the hot takes. We try to give multiple perspectives on why we may be yes on this, even though normally we wouldn't be. We try to give you a really balanced one. We were very, very respectful of the D8 race for all the reasons that Mai already outlined, which is that, we have a profound amount of respect for Pastor Les and the work that he has done in the South Sacramento community. He is a pillar of the community. We respect him, and he's been really supportive of the Sister Circle. He's a great guy. Also, and just an all-around great person, love his family, just fantastic. And so we actually describe this as the race that D8 deserves. Because they haven't had that in a really long time. And so, the circle does recommend, and of course, BWOPA did endorse Mai, but we really do take extra care and caution in our treatment of, in particular, that race, because of how much we really respected both candidates, but wanted to lay out, the issues as we saw them. So, so that is the guide.
That's like a dream election, right? Where you're like, it is. Like every election should be like that.
Correct. Absolutely.
Like them both. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What a world. That's not the American way. That's not how we do things in America.
It's not usually that great. So D8, just say thank you, because you are getting something that so often people don't get a chance to have, which is a sort of no lose situation. Usually it's a no win. So it's nice to have a no lose. So sacramentosistercircle.com/vote. And there are a few races that weren't included in our first draft of this, but should be up in the next couple of days, including some in Placer and Eureka. And I think there's an Elk Grove race that we're going to add for school board. And I think SMUD is going to be coming soon as well. So just stay tuned. It's a living document. And so we will add additional information if things come out. We will, we'll certainly add those in. And there are some links in there as well to things that have happened around town and, additional resources. So check it out.
Yeah.
And
please. Yeah, I think it's so awesome because it's going to be crazy this November. I mean, just like there's going to be so much mail, just so much noise. It's just going to be so hard to navigate it all. Right. And I think having something like this flow is awesome for the community to be able to, just look at and see what the recommendations are. I think it's really beneficial. This is civic engagement at its best, so it's just mad props to everyone. Yeah, it's awesome.
If you love it, you can send thank yous to me. And if you hate it, my name is Kula Koenig. You can find me at
Kula. Our next guest now.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Hilarious.
But I do have to round it out. But do check it out. I think it is a great service.
It is.
At before we dive into all of our social media stuff, thank you so much. You have been a phenomenal guest. Is there any final thing you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think the last thing I would say is that, I hope everyone's staying healthy and safe. I know we are still in the middle of a global pandemic. And so I know that everyone is fighting their own struggles, personally, with family, in their professional life, in the community. And so just make sure that all of y'all are taking care of yourself, because we're going to need you for the long haul. Fighting for equity, fighting for the people, that's not going to happen overnight. It's almost like a lifetime of work, and we're going to need each other along the way. And so I know I'm getting serious, but I really do. I'm sending all of y'all hella love and healing, and just making sure that y'all take care of yourself. Wash your hands, sanitize. We got these things that we're giving out, keeping South Sac strong. We
Hell
got these
yeah.
hand sanitizer too. I know. We got masks. We're actually dropping some care packages for voters in the district, and just reminding folks to take care of themselves. So that's the last thing, just making sure everybody take care of themselves, because times are tough right now.
Yeah,
they
are tough, and it's hard to find the right balance of doing maybe the fights you want to do, or the work you need to do, or building the relationships you need to build, and also just taking a second to take care of yourself. And everyone's trying to, I think everyone's finding, hopefully getting a little bit closer, and some days maybe we're moving a little further away from the answer to that every day. But thank you.
But I have to say that this has been hella healing too. Just laughing with y'all. This has been really awesome. And so just thank you so much to all three of y'all, and Shannon too, because I know Shannon's not here, but for holding this type of space for progressive voices. And I just want to say thank you so much.
That means a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, thank you for coming on the show. It was
absolutely
amazing to have you.
So we are on.
No, you go first. You're gonna go.
I was gonna say we are on social. We have Voices River City on Facebook, at Voices River City on Twitter and Instagram. It's funny as shit on Instagram. Follow that shit. We are on Patreon, patreon.com/Voices River City. Please be our patron there. We're also on YouTube. You can watch our little faces as we talk, and that's always a little bit fun. I am on Twitter at Kempa, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
And you can find me at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE, and you can find Shannon at Shan ND Stevens.
Tweet healing tweets at Shannon. Shannon needs those good tweets. So tweet nice stuff to Shannon.
And tweet your hog. Tweet hog at Shannon.
Tweet your hog at Shannon.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good. We'll get that hashtag rolling. You're welcome, Shannon.
Mai, how can we find you on social?
You could check out our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. It's the handle is Mai Vang Sacramento. On Twitter is Mai_Sacramento, and then on Facebook and Twitter is just Mai Sacramento. So
okay. I like how you were looking that up
I know I had to double check, because I was like, that was taken, because we try to keep our handle very similar if possible.
Yeah.
Because I heard that's the thing you're supposed to do, but we tried, but some of the Mai was taken, so I was like, okay, we try to keep it the same as possible. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and also because my niece says I'm really boring, so she told me to start a TikTok account. So we got a TikTok account now too. So I got a few TikTok videos, not too many, but we're on TikTok as well. So
this is the first time we've gotten a TikTok ask on the show.
I downloaded TikTok and I couldn't find any friends, and I'm like, I'm an old now. That's it.
Yeah, I have it on my phone just to fight off the oldness, but I don't really use it.
Yeah, there's a lot of young folks on there for sure.
How do I find you now? Oh, good. I have a captive audience. How do I find you on TikTok?
Yeah, you go on TikTok, and then it's also my handles, also Mai Sacramento, Mai Vang Sacramento as well. We try to keep it consistent. Mai Vang Sacramento. Yeah, Mai Vang Sacramento. See, so I right there, I'm doing this little thing with my niece. She's showing me something. I got a mask on, but yeah, so
that's exactly what I'm gonna watch as soon as
we
end the show.
Yeah,
which I guess we're doing now.
Yeah. All right.
Well, Mai, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Y'all are amazing. So thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you for listening. And as always, we want to say that we love you and we want you to be safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from me.
All
Good
right.
night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.